Hey everyone, well a lot of people have gotten the new iOS 7 for their iPhone, and the first complaints we've heard are about battery life. This is a common thing that happens with a lot of people that get a smartphone, but there's been some things about iOS 7 that make it a little bit more prone to draining your battery than previous versions of iOS. Now, a couple things I want to go over first are some of the basic things that you need to always do even if you have old iOS, any smartphone, to save battery life. You have to remember the thing about smartphones. They're not so much phones anymore as they are computers. So it's kind of naive to think that the battery is going to last 2 or 3 days. That's just not what they're meant to do anymore. They're getting better through time, but remember, this is essentially a computer. It's not a phone anymore. So just you have to treat it like your laptop or a tablet. You're going to get a day maximum out of these, but there are ways to be more efficient with your battery life. The first thing you'll notice is and this is for any phone, by the way, when I turn my phone on, the first thing I go to is the settings. And this is something you can do regardless of what phone you have, is to look for the brightness settings. You go to the brightness, wallpapers, and brightness, and turn on auto brightness. This means it'll auto adjust based on the brightness of the room. There's actually a sensor up here near the earpiece that will sense the amount of light in the room and adjust accordingly. The one thing you want to do is adjust this brightness here to the lowest one you possibly can that's still tolerable by yourself, because the brighter your screen, the more battery you're going to use up. So try to keep it as dim as possible. The other thing is, when you're done with your phone, I always lock it. You don't want the screen on when you're not using it. So I always hit the power button and I turn it off. That will save battery life. Now let's get into some of the things that really drain your battery more than anything else. You got to remember, every smartphone has 3 antennas. It has a Bluetooth antenna, it has a Wi-Fi antenna, and it has your cellular network antenna. Anytime those antennas are in use, it's going to be draining battery life. So you want to turn as many of those off as possible when they're not in use. The one nice thing about iOS 7 is it gives you a shortcut to turn off your cell signal. You can go to airplane mode, you can turn off your Wi-Fi or your Bluetooth. Do not turn your Bluetooth on unless you're using it, because it'll always be searching for another Bluetooth device, eating up battery. So you want to keep those off as much as possible. I'm at home right now and I'm on Wi-Fi, so obviously I have my Wi-Fi on, so I leave it on. But here's some places to look to turn things off in your settings. Go to settings, go to general, and the first thing you want to look at is go to your background app refresh right here. Make sure this is turned off. If you turn it on, all the apps you have in the background will be running, basically refreshing. That means not only will they eat battery, they're going to eat up your data plan if you're not on Wi-Fi. So you want to disable background app refresh. That will save you a load of battery usage as well as data usage if you're on a cell plan. It's not unlimited. The next thing you want to do is go back to your settings and go to privacy. Now you don't see it in here off the bat. You have to go back to the next menu and go to privacy. And in here you see location services. One of the things that drains your battery more than anything is GPS. So go in here, and location services are turned on because I want them on for certain features. So what you got to do is scroll all the way to the bottom. This is kind of a hidden menu. All the way at the bottom, you're going to see system services right there. If you click that system services, you're going to see everything that's using your GPS. So you see diagnostics and usage. I don't necessarily want to be sending that out. I don't want iAds on, so I turn that off. Turn as many of these off as you want or as you don't need. But one thing I noticed in iOS 7, especially on the iPhone 5, if you go to frequent locations, not only is this kind of creepy, it tracks where you're at. Now I think they do this basically to target ads, but also coupons and promotions. If you go to a restaurant or store all the time, you want to make sure this is toggled off. I have it turned off right now. If it's turned on, you'll see it like that. It'll improve map, and look, it actually shows you wherever you've been. So I turn this off because I don't want the GPS on at all. So I turn these off, as many of these as possible. I try to turn these off. So the big thing to do is go into settings, check as many of these location services as possible. Obviously, you want to use your GPS at certain times, but if you want to save battery life completely, turn off the GPS. If you're in a meeting or something, you're not using it, just turn it off. You can always turn it back on. One of the other things that's kind of hidden in here, if you go to settings, is go back all the way to the the main menu. If you scroll through here, you'll see cellular. Now this is something I do a lot when I'm on the golf course or I'm out in the woods somewhere hiking or running. I may not need 4G LTE turned on. 4G LTE, it's a great data service, but it eats up battery life like crazy. So if you're not in need of fast data speeds, turn that off. That'll save you a load of battery life, and just keep your cellular data, which is essentially 3G. So you could just keep that on. That's another way to save battery life. Another thing, and this is kind of a neat little trick, you notice my background is pretty dark. Now, a lot of people like different pictures in their background, but believe it or not, the brighter your screen, as I mentioned before about brightness, the more battery life it uses. So the brighter your background image, the more power it takes to display it. So with all these dark spaces I have up here in a dark blue, it's basically a globe image here. The whiter this image is here, the more battery life it's going to eat up. So you may want to select the background image that actually is pretty dark. That way it'll save you on some of your battery life. And as always, one thing you want to do whenever you're using your phone, as soon as you're done, is make sure you put it back to sleep like that. Another thing, I showed you the background app refresh. Make sure you're closing those out even if you don't have it on. So I close all these background apps so they're not running in the background as much as possible. That will help save you a load of battery life. So those are just a couple tips and tricks to kind of save on your battery life. Again, I'm done, so I'm going to turn that off. That helps save your battery life as well. So those are just a few things that will help you kind of reduce your battery usage during the day. It's never going to be foolproof, but maybe you can sneak 5 to 10% more out of your battery life during any given day. I hope these are helpful, and I hope you have a great time today. If you have any questions about using your iPhone, go ahead and shoot them my way. I'm a tech geek and a weather geek at the same time.